Yeah, hey everyone, and welcome back to this channel. In our last video, we covered the absolute basics of navigating and manipulating objects in Blender. Now it's time to put those skills to the test and create something fun. The iconic Blender doughnut. This tutorial is for complete beginners. We'll walk through every step together, and by the end, you'll have your very own delicious looking donut. Practice makes perfect, so don't be afraid to experiment with different colors, shapes, and sprinkles. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give a like and subscribe to the channel for more Blender beginner tutorials. In the next video, we'll explore so fire up Blender and let's get started. Alright, you should have the default cube in front of you. We're automatically going to use this as our starting point. First, let's scale it down a bit to get the general size of our donut. Press S on the keyboard and scale, and then drag your mouse inwards. You don't need to be too precise here, and click to stop scaling. Now you see it's small. Okay, click the Add Modifier button in the Properties tab in order to find the subdivision surface. So you see this is the Properties tab. You can look here, it says Properties, and the modifiers look like a little wrench. You can press Add Modifier, you can search, and just type subdivision surface, you see, and you can click it. You see our cube has become a lot smaller. In the levels viewport controls how smooth it looks in the editor. Let's increase it to 2 for now. You can see it's starting to look more like a round shape, but it's still a bit blocky. To make it truly smooth, right click on the object and select in the 3D viewport and select Shade Smooth. Now you see it looks smooth. Now, let's make the iconic donut hole. Select the donut shape, and now we're going to switch to edit mode. You can click here, or you can just press the tab button. In edit mode, make sure you're in the face select mode. You can toggle this at the top of the screen with this, or you could press 3 on your keyboard. We need to select the faces at the top and bottom and where we want the hole to be. Hold down the shift button and click these two. Okay. Do the same for you can click it up and bottom, but you shouldn't click it from any of the other sides, only the top and the bottom. Now, once you selected those faces, click the I key for inset. And yeah, you can inset it like this. If you can drag your mouse inwards to create a smaller one if you would, but don't do it too small. Don't do it too much, otherwise it could look like this. Okay, now with the smaller faces selected, press S key, press the X key, and select faces to delete the faces. If you want, you can just scale it by the X-axis and scale it by the Y-axis. You see? And if you want to, we can go to. If you want to make this donut hole better, you can just select all of these edges, just as you see on that were the edges that were the square. Where we deleted that face, and you can just scale it by the X and Y axis. You can scale it in order to make it more like a donut. You see here. Okay, good. And with those new smaller faces selected, you can press the X key and choose faces after that. After you just press the X key, okay, you can now try to add the icing. Now for some delicious icing thing. Oh yeah, there's another way in order to make this delicious icing. You know what's you can just go to sculpt mode, and you can go to mask. Mask, you see? Then and you can mask it out if you want. Just try to mask it. Just try to mask it like that. And you can go to mask. Mask extract. And then boom, you have your mask. But I don't recommend it because it's kind of glitchy. Okay. Now, it's time to add our sprinkles. We can press Shift D to duplicate this, and then immediately press Enter. So yeah, so it just stays in the exact spot. Now with the duplicate selected, it might be hard to see directly on the top. Let's rename it to the outline. You can rename it to the outline on the top right and call it icing. In the outliner, you can just rename this to icing. Like that. Now in the modifier properties, let's remove that subdivision surface modifier here from the object by clicking X and extend its name. Or you could just put, but I just say you could just press apply, because then it won't just turn into a random box. You want to make the icing slightly overlap the donut. Let's go into edit mode. Edit mode. Let's go to edit mode. You can press tab. Now you can press A to select all of the versions within the icing in the face editor. Then you can press S to scale it and drag the row slightly outward to make it a little bigger. You want the icing to look like it's dripping down from the sides. And you can use a simple sculpting technique. Exit edit mode, press tab, make sure the icing is selected, and go to the top menu. Go to the top menu and switch from object mode to sculpt mode, or you can just do it directly from object mode to sculpt mode. On the very left hand side on the variety of sculpting brushes for a dripping effect, go to grab. Yep, this can be very useful. Select it. Now gently click and drag the edges. You see? Yes, but yes. But if you don't want it just to be like that hole or something, you can go to edit mode and select all of these things that are under. Just select all of these things that are under here. Just select everything, like almost everything that's under here, you see? And then you can press delete faces. And you can do that like again like with these next few rows in order to make it, like a donut. Then you can just grab those things with the sculpt tool and do it. Let me show you. And you have to do this while holding shift. It's very important to do this while holding shift, because just deleting them just individually is very tedious. Okay, so now after that, we can go back to sculpt mode and you can just grab those edges. Just try to grab those edges in order to make the icing nice and smooth. As you see, you just try to do it. Just try. If it's not enough strength, you can just increase the strength tool up here, and just start brushing. This can look tedious, but it's at least a good way. Okay, then you should be done. Like, for example, me, just look at this thing. Once you're happy with the shape, switch back to object mode. Good. Now it's time to add the color. Let's start with the donut. Select the donut object, and in the properties editor, go to the materials tab. It should look like a little sphere. Select the new button to create a new material. Or if you already have a material, or if you already have that material, you can just use this one. You see. For the base color, just click on the color switch. Watch, you see. You can choose a nice golden brown color. If you can't see it, you can press this thing on the top. And press this thing at the top if you can't see it. So just change it around. It's golden brown color. Let's see, like that. Now you see, if this icing just keep changing the color, with the donuts, it's because they have the same material. So you can just add a new material and delete this one to give it some color. Hold on, so you can feel free to experiment with your donut colors. Now select the icing object and create a new material like I just did earlier here, and you can rename this to icing material. Icing material. For the icing, let's go with a classic white. And on the color swatch, you can choose white. You can also play around with the roughness slider to give it some, if you just make it roughness slider all the way down to 0, it just looks like this. You can just play with the roughness slider in order to give it that nice roughness shape. Okay. As you see here, you can make it more or less shiny with the roughness. This slider. Okay, a slightly lower light roughness will give it a bit of a glossy look, like minus like here. To make our donuts even more appealing, let's add some sprinkles. This will be a bit more advanced. Oh yeah, if you want this donut to be like any color you want, you can make this donut any color you want. You can make the icing any color you want. For example, I'm just gonna make my donuts a little bit like this, as you see here. Now let's add some sprinkles. Don't worry, even though this is a bit more advanced, we'll take it slow. First, in object mode, select the donut. Go to edit mode, pressing tab. Oh yeah, and if you hadn't, you have to apply the sum and division surface modifier to this donut too. So you can go to edit mode. When you went to edit mode, but we're going to use the particle systems to distribute the sprinkles. Click on the particle properties tab. It looks a bit more like an emitting sphere here in the properties editor. So like particles, and you see this is the particles. Okay, now you can click the plus button to add a new particle system. In the emission settings, you can increase the number of how many sprinkles they are. This is the number of how many sprinkles you are. We have, let's try a few hundred for now. Okay, so I'm just gonna set it to 500, but to not crash my computer, I'm just gonna put it at just 200. Yeah, 200. Right now you have them at just appealing little dots, but if you're me, I can't see them right now. Okay. We want them to turn into 3D sprinkles. In the render settings, okay, render, see here. Change render as halo to render as object. Now, as we need an object to be a sprinkle, let's go back into object mode. You can press tab, then press Shift A to add a mesh. You see here, and you can do it to a cube. Scale it down significantly to be the size of a sprinkle. Okay. Just make it the size that you want your sprinkle to be. With this tiny cube selected, go back to the donut's particles settings. Back to the donut's particle system settings. In the render section, under object, you can see a little eyedropper. Use it tool, and you can click on your tiny sprinkle tool. You can just go here and you can press on this cube you see over here. Okay, Hey, and you can just rename this cube if you want. If you want to sprinkle. Cool. Okay, let's go back to the donut. Okay. Now you should see little cubes all over your donut. If you don't, maybe if you don't, I think you should have done something wrong. Like I might have done something wrong or something. Yeah, I think. Oh, I get it. Okay, let me tell you something. You should have maybe put it. Hey, it's on the. You should have shut it on. Shut. Okay, you should have put it on here. Okay, sorry. Scale. You can scale these cubes up. Select scale randomness. This you want. Well, let's see where a sprinkle is. Let's just see where a sprinkle is over here. And now let's go back to the donut. You can just try experimenting because I don't think I know this. Like this is the hair length, the hair segment. Okay. You see the segment. The seed changes where it's put. But you can't. But if you want this to actually, okay, so it turns out my person who made the script made a mistake. It's supposed to go on the icing, I think, particle system. Make the emitter just an amount of numbers, just like this. Now the render as object. You can select the object, this object called sprinkle. Cool. Okay, and you have to put it back to here, and you can make the number, the hair length. You know, just need the big and yeah, that's it. And you can just skip. Okay, and if you don't want this the original sprinkle to look like this, you can just hide it if you want under. Okay, so it looks like our donut is going well. Well, you can also make it random by going down. There's like a random button, scale randomness under render. It shows how random the scale can be. If you want. But finally, you can give the sprinkle an object material. Select the tiny cube or the sprinkle. Cool. And go to the material properties. Okay? After you go to the material properties, create a new material and choose a bright color, you know? Just any bright color you see, like. Yeah. I'm just gonna make these clothes, just green. Now I'm gonna make them a little bit here. Yeah, a little bit here. Now you can create multiple sprinkle objects. That's why for the icing in the particle editor, to make it a fair and even number, you can put it up to like 200 and just douse it. Okay, then you can create, then you can do this more times. So with the sprinkle, you can make another one. I'm gonna make another one, change its material, change its base, just delete the first old bit. One, you can change its base color to something like any color you want. Then in icing, same material, go to particle editor, create a new one, and do the exact one. Okay. Okay, and you can also press here in order to, use this one. Now as you see, you got more sprinkles. The scale, you can just use the scale. You change the scale here. You can then snap the number to 200. No. Hold up. Wait a minute. And there can be something wrong. I get it. Okay. So when you're trying to do this again, and you're gonna, okay. So you can just snap it down to 200. Rid of them. Okay. You can change the seed so they'll spawn some other place else, and you can just try to scale the same size. You just try to scale the same size, like this, yeah. Then you can do this more and more times. And boom, after you're done, it's time to do lighting and rendering. As you see, our donut is looking pretty good. We came so far just from a simple cube to this donut. Now it's time to render this thing. Now it's time, we have to set up some lighting to make it shine. You could have a default, you could still have your default light in your scene. And your camera. And you can select an G and move it around until it illuminates it really good. You can also select this in order to make it, you can select this in order to make the in order to render the donut. This just looks how it is in the mode, but if you want it to be rendered, you have to do the actual render. So you can press 0 and see this is how the people's perspective will be. So you can just go move. You can just try to move it farther, and yeah, it just looks nice and smooth. And you can also, and how you move the light is use the grab key, you see. If you want more dramatic lighting, you can add more lights, and you can choose the light. Experiment with different lights, like point, sun, or spot. Like shift A. You can go to light, which is right here. The sun is right here. You can just the sun here. You see the sun right here. But you can check other tutorials to see how lights work. Once you're happy with your lighting, as you see here, once you're happy with your lighting, and it's time to render the image, go to render. You're at the top and select the image. Oh yeah, and if you haven't done it yet, you can go to Control S, and you can name it doughnut, as you see right here. Save the Blender file. So I just saved it just in case you guys were confused. Okay, so we go to render, and then you select render image. The render will begin. The process might take a few moments, but Blender is calculating how the light reacts in your scene. And as you see, once the render is complete, there you have it, your own Blender donut. Save the image. To save the image, go to Image and Render Image, and save as. Choose a location in your computer to save it as. It's like, you can choose some place to save this as. And you can just name it the same thing, doughnut. That's okay. You can choose it. Okay. Congratulations. You just created a complete donut in Blender. You just created a complete donut in Blender. Congratulations. How delicious does your donut look? I hope you had fun following along. Remember,